The original Silent Night, Deadly Night sparked a lot of backlash in 1984 because of its depiction of a killer Santa. There were a lot of protests. I saw it as a kid. I didn't really remember much about it other than the antler kill. That definitely stuck with me. I just rewatched it a couple days ago for the first time in at least 20 years. Honestly, expecting it to be terrible, and it really wasn't. I had a good time with it. I've never seen any of the sequels. I know about Garbage Day. There was a remake in 2012, sort of. It's a very loose remake, has very little to do with the story of the original. But now we have another remake here in 2025, which had the potential to be the best in the series, because it's not like a really high bar. And I gotta say, I enjoyed this quite a bit. I would like to see sequels to this. I would like to have some yearly Christmas slasher fun. This does what a remake should do. It takes the core concept of the original and it stays true to that. But then the story that plays out from that is completely different. It does its own thing. So once again, you have a young boy named Billy who sees his parents killed by a guy dressed as Santa, and then he becomes a killer later in life while he's wearing a Santa outfit. But that is only the setup. This spends much more time focusing on him as an adult and as a killer. This time he's played by Rowan Campbell of Corey Cunningham, Halloween Ends fame. I guess he's just collecting classic holiday-themed slasher franchises. If they ever do a new My Bloody Valentine, get him on the phone. No matter what you thought of Halloween Ends, his performance was certainly not a problem. He was really good, and he's really good here too. It's a very different approach to the character. In the first one, you spend a lot of time with him as a child, seeing all of the different ways he's becoming traumatized, where you feel really bad for him. And you realize him becoming a slasher villain is like inevitable. There's no other option. This kid is just doomed. Whereas this one goes through the beginning much quicker, and we spend much more time with him as a killer. So we don't have that emotional connection really, but that is replaced by a really good performance and a much different look at the character, as we kind of have like a Silent Night, Deadly Night meets Dexter situation on our hands, where the people he's killing are actually deserving of it. In the original, a couple of the people he killed were just kind of random, like they were fine, or people who were just having sex. In this, he kills legitimately bad people, and so there is actually more you can root for. So it's different. There are things about each one that I like more, but each one does what it's trying to do pretty well. And I'm not going to get into spoilers about how exactly they handle the way in which he operates as a killer, but it's very different. It's unexpected. Just the way it lets you into his mind and his performance when he is being like a normal guy trying to work at this store, trying to form this relationship, or when he's kind of starting to snap. He's really good at both of those things. And then you have Ruby Modine as this girl that he works with, Pamela, and this is a very weird romance, but also kind of sweet. It's very unique. I really like what they did with the two of them and they did with her character. She's also not a stranger to slashers. She was in Happy Death Day. Also, I didn't know she was Matthew Modine's daughter. Same last name, obviously, but it's not like they look anything alike. So I really like what the two of them had. He actually gets to have more of a life and more agency than he did in the original, whereas as soon as we get to him as an adult, we see him for a little while, but we're really just waiting for the inevitable snap. This one takes it much differently, and we're dealing with all these people who are naughty, and there are things this movie does that are very different than, I assume, any of the other movies. I haven't seen the sequels, but from what I think, this movie does things that none of them have ever done. I think there are some areas where it pushes it too far in some of the ways it treats him. I'm going to talk about spoilers at the end. After I finish everything, I'll give a warning and then I'll talk about spoilers. But for now, all I'll say, in the way that it treats his abilities as a killer, I think there are some spots where it pushes it too far, where it could have remained a little more ambiguous about certain things, and I think I would have preferred that. But for the most part, I liked how it went in a different direction and kind of took a big swing with what it was doing there. It's very Christmassy. There's Christmas imagery all over the place. There's an advent calendar that he uses to mark off of his kills. There's a lot of decorations, and it feels like the holiday, which is really important. There's some references, some nods to the original and to other horror movies that I really liked. I didn't think it was overdone. I thought it was just the right amount. There are some good kills. I could have used more. It's not the biggest budget film in the world, but for what they have to work with, They do a pretty good job with that. There's some CG. There's a couple spots of CG blood. Only a couple. It looks quite bad, but for the most part, they have practical effects and it looks pretty good. There was just this one shot in particular that stood out to me as looking really, really bad. And for some reason, they showed it twice. I'm like, if that's all you could do with the budget or the time you were given, fine. But don't show it twice. Like, understand your limitations. Understand that what you have presented me with is this bad effect in this one instance. And make sure you don't show it again. I really like what they do with the ending here and how it can set up sequels. I totally wouldn't mind going in that direction. I think that could be really interesting. There's one thing about the ending that was a little unsatisfying, just these side characters in the film that you're kind of waiting for something to happen with. There's something that you're waiting to like boil over, and it just kind of fizzles. And it's like, oh, that could have been more climactic. But for the most part, this is a dumb, fun slasher. It's Silent Night, Deadly Night. It's not exactly highbrow. It's considered a classic for many reasons, but it's not like one of the best of the best, and I think even fans will admit that. It's just like this low-budget, dirty little slasher. It has some really unique things about it. It has some good things, like how we follow Billy's childhood, but, you know, it's not one of the greatest movies of all time. And so for what it is, doing a modern-day remake and taking it in such a different direction, this is a cool new version of it that I think is kind of a good companion piece to the original. It was fun. Now I want to get into a couple spoilers, so leave if you don't want to know any of the details. Basically, we have some supernatural elements involved this time. Like I said, I don't know if any of the sequels have that. I don't think so. I could be wrong, but the original certainly did not. So Billy has the voice in his head of the guy who killed his parents, Charlie. And Charlie can just kind of like tell when somebody bad is in the room, and he'll be like, look around the room, so that when Billy can see him, he can identify them and identify what they've done. And that's pushing it a little bit, but it's kind of ambiguous. You can interpret that as just good intuition. Maybe he's a Sherlock Holmes type. Maybe he notices these otherwise imperceptible details that tip him off that something is wrong. But eventually they push it to the point where apparently Charlie actually literally can see the bad deeds these people have done. And that's explicitly supernatural. We also get the flashback when Charlie died in front of Billy, and they take each other's hands, and Charlie's soul or whatever transfers into Billy. This can also be seen as ambiguous because it could be symbolic, and it could just be the child's remembrance and experience and feeling of it. But then it happens again at the end. Billy dies, and he transfers his soul into Pamela. And so you really can't excuse it anymore. It's explicitly supernatural. I wish it wasn't. I think I would have preferred if it remained a little more on that ambiguous side, if it was just enough to question it, but you could still remain grounded if you lied to yourself a little bit. but with the way they push it, there's really no lying to myself. It's clearly supernatural. I don't mind it. I think it works well enough. I think I would have preferred otherwise, but I did enjoy the ending. So I guess that's what they had to do to get there. They could have just said, she's so traumatized that now she's crazy, but to get the ending they wanted, they had to go supernatural, and I'm fine with it. I know there will be some fans who don't like it. Some fans don't want you to change literally anything ever, but I think it mostly works. But that's it. That's all my thoughts for now. We can have more conversation in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, all that stuff. Leave a like. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.